Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Hello if you're new here. Say hello to Miffy and to my new filming space. I still have my prints laying up against the wall. I was gonna hang them up, but I feel like it gives artsy. Like I feel like it gives like Tumblr vibes, you know? Let me know. I post all my interior design stuff over on my Instagram if you want to go follow me over on there, and my TikTok. I also want to say just a little side note before we get in today's video. If you guys did not know, I am a plus size model and fashion content creator when I'm not sitting on my YouTube being a yapper. I just had a campaign go live with Thread Beauty and Target nationwide. Here are some photos. So if you follow me on YouTube and you don't follow me on Instagram or TikTok, if you ever see it in your local Target, just like tag me on your story. I would love to repost it and reshare it, send it to my mom, you know, all that stuff. And today's video, I'm excited because it's one of your guys' favorite videos, aka another bookish video. If you couldn't tell by the title, we are fan casting ML Rio's, I just forgot the title, If We Were Villains. Hello. If We Were Villains is a dark academia novel. I've done a deep dive on it below. It's like 2 hours long. I'll link it down there. Man, it's so cold. My nose is running. Free me from the shackles of the Midwest. And I talked about it as well in another video where I compared it to some other popular BookTok dark academia books. So they'll be linked below if you want to watch them. But I'm excited for this one. You guys love the Secret History fan casting video, and I'm somebody who thinks shifting is real. So like me being Delulu and putting like my versions of media I want to see into the world makes me think that like in 10 years when I'm on the James Corden show, wait, he's probably not going to be alive. Well, James, hey Siri, how old is James Corden? Oh, 45. He'll be fine. He'll only be 50. Sorry, James. I want him to be like, oh, you used to make YouTube videos where you would talk about films and now you're in the films and how does that feel, you know? So anyway, I'm on a tangent. I'm excited because I'm delusional enough to think that casting departments will see this. HBO, call me. A24, call me. Invite me to a film festival, a premiere, anything. If you're watching, love you. Okay. Let's get into this because I've yapped enough. Let's fan cast If We Were Villains by ML Rio. Pause. Sorry. Me here. Before we can get into today's video, we have to talk about today's sponsor, and I'm so excited because today's video is sponsored by Raycon. By now, I'm sure you've heard of Raycon, but if you haven't, today's your lucky day. They are amazing, cost half the price of the popular ones, so you can get the quality without breaking the bank. They come in so many amazing, beautiful colors. I love how sleek and clean girl vibe they look. Same thing with the earbud. They have this comfortable silicone tip, and because of this tip, they do not fall out. They do not move. When I go on my hot girl walk and I'm listening to my podcast, I'm gasping, I'm sweaty, okay? I got a wig on. They're not getting tangled. They're not falling out. Unlike my other headphones, these literally never die on me. They have an 8-hour listen time and a 32-hour battery life. Earbuds have replaced almost all of my other forms of headphones. They don't sit tight on the head. They don't get tangled up. And if you don't believe me, you can go over to their website, which is located in my description. There's over 49,000 5-star reviews that you can check out, and you can also use my code MOBLACK for 15% off your order of Raycon earbuds. So if you want to twin and you want to be baddies and we can listen to our podcast on our hot girl walk, then go get you some Raycons. Okay, let's get into today's video. In the same vein of the Secret History video I did, I talked about how ideally I would want the adaptation to go. And with Secret History, I feel like it would do best as a miniseries. However, If We Were Villains, I think is good enough to be a movie. I think about a 2-hour and 15-minute movie could capture the story. But I do think if they wanted to do a 7 or 8 part miniseries, it would work really well. I don't think it would be something that could be more than 1 season or more than 1 limited series, just because there's not much there. And I think that if they did do it like that, they would try to drag it out and try to add a lot more material. For the majority of the book, they're prepping for plays and they're putting them on, so I could see a lot of that time being stretched out, because when Oliver is telling us the story, he is telling us this post 10 years in prison. So of course he's breezing through it and he's just hitting the major checkpoints, because at that point your memory has eroded so much of the little details away. It only like exists in vignettes of like the big overarching moment, which Shakespeare's writing tends to do a lot as well. So I think unless ML Rio was brought on as a show writer and took the ideas that they had in their head that didn't make it to the final print and put them to the show, I don't think they would do it justice, because now you're completely changing the story by adding any new material. But do I think that they could do it and it still be watchable? Yes, this is like a girl who literally watched every season of Pretty Little Liars, so the bar is quite literally in hell. But with that being said, let's get into our version, because I genuinely feel I cooked. Like, I'm just saying, call me Natalie Nunn, I did my big one. Before I get into this though, I do want to say minor characters like Oliver's sister Leah and his other sister whose name escapes me, I want all of those actors to be unnamed actors. All of the background characters, all of the Shakespeare students, I think hiring extras and I think hiring theater students would really help. Not only add to like how realistic it feels, but it would obviously get people some experience under their belt. And I just personally think that unknown actors for minor characters are always important, because if there's a major actor in a minor character role, you pay more attention to that character than you actually should. And I feel like you start to like infer things that aren't actually there, you know? We're gonna go in order of how they appear in the book, and the first person that we get a distinct description for is Richard. Of Richard, Oliver says, Richard was pure power, 6'3" and carved from concrete, with sharp black eyes and a thrilling bass voice that flattened every other sound in the room. He played warlords and despots and anyone else that the audience needed to be impressed by or afraid of. When I think of Richard right off the bat, I see a lot of people casting Jacob Elordi, and what I want to say to you is, what if we didn't? I feel like Jacob is kind of getting the Timothy treatment, where like every major adaptation, you're like, I know who's perfect for this. This guy who's in every single major adaptation that's come out in the past 4 years. And while I do think that Jacob Elordi is amazing, I do not see him as our Richard. And for our Richard, I have his Kissing Booth co-star, Taylor Zachnar Perez. To me, I feel like he is the epitome of what I would say like Roman beauty is. Very tan, chiseled features. His nose is chiseled literally by the gods himself. He has dark, beautiful, curly hair, and I feel like he's tall and imposing in the same way that Jacob Elordi is, but he has very romantic, sleepy, kind of dreamy eyes. I feel like you can be impressed and intimidated by him. Like somebody who's so handsome, he's almost like off-putting or a little scary. I think that very much describes Richard, and I do think that this could be a really transformative role for him. And this specific picture of him in the black, like this is Richard to me. Like there are so many pictures of him where I see Richard, I really feel like he would just bring it, and I feel like he can yell. Like I just feel like he has it in him. I feel like he could be very scary. The next person that we are introduced to is Richard's girlfriend, Meredith. Remember, Meredith, she is the main character, kind of the lead, and she's Oliver's other main love interest outside of James. Of Meredith, Oliver says, Meredith was uniquely designed for seduction. A walking daydream of supple curves and skin like satin, but there was something merciless about her appeal. You watched her when she moved, whatever else was happening, and whether you wanted to or not. She and Richard had been together in a very typical sense of the word since spring semester of our second year. It's also revealed later on down the line that Meredith is a redhead, which I thought was kind of cool, because in the theater in Hollywood, if you guys don't know, it's very much like a well-known thing that redheads are typically cast as like the seductress, the temptress, the what's the YouTube appropriate word? 304, okay, and also kind of like the hysterical roles. So I loved that Meredith was that, and for her, I have, drumroll please, Miss Abigail Cohen. You might know her from Fate the Winx Saga, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I feel like Abigail kind of has this like beautiful, lived in, like slept in quality to her red hair and her freckles, and you can tell that it's like her natural hair color and it's with her skin color, and I just feel like she has this natural, beautiful, like ethereal vibe to her, which I mean, she literally got casted to play a fairy princess, so not surprising at all. I did use Madeline Pesh as my face claim when I did the explanation video, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought that her red was a little bit too much like cherry, a little too provocative. It didn't really fit who Meredith truly is, although it kind of gave the vibe of what people think Meredith is. So I thought maybe she could be good. It could be a transformative role. I also thought about Sadie Sink, but unfortunately I think she is just a little too young looking and young vibe for this role. I think in this point in her career, it would kind of make it a little bit uncomfortable, because I feel like she would just stick out like a sore thumb. I think that Taylor Zachnar Perez and Abigail Cohen would make the most beautiful couple ever, and I think if you hit her hair with just like a little bit of an auburn glaze. The next person we are introduced to is Ren. Of Ren, Oliver says this: Ren, Richard's cousin, though you never would have guessed it by looking at them, was the ingenue. The girl next door, a waifish thing with corn silk hair and round china doll eyes. He is so nice when he describes Ren, and the way he describes Meredith compared is insane. Yet at the end of the book, he claims to love Meredith. I'm just like, Thanks. Hated that. Ren is one of my favorite characters. I really love her internal struggle on if she should be okay with what happens to Richard or not, and whether you can love somebody but know that they're not a good person, and you can also feel hurt and scared and just want it to end, and then once you do seek revenge on the person that's done that or seek equity or justice, you feel that guilt, especially that survivor's guilt that so many family members feel. And I don't think that ML Rio was trying to like say in too many words that Richard and Ren were like Charles and Camilla. There was a bit of his overprotectiveness that I don't know if it was misogyny or if it was just like the homophobia he felt from James, because he thought James was using Ren as his beard a la Larry Stylinson. I don't know. Something in the buttermilk ain't white, as my southern grandma would say. And I thought about who I wanted to play her a lot, and I finally settled on the perfect Ren. I kid you not. Not only is she the perfect age, she's 23, but when I look at her, I'm like, that's Ren. That is literally Ren, and it is none other than the talented, the amazing, the stunning Thomasin McKenzie. She's great. She's been in The Hobbit. She was in Old with M. Night Shyamalan. She really had her breakout role in Last Night at Soho, where she played Eloise opposite Anya Taylor-Joy, and it was amazing. I loved her character there. She played a college-age student. It was super believable. She also recently did Eileen, where she played a young girl who kind of falls into the trap and into this kind of like cat and mouse love game with a charismatic older psychologist that works at the prison she does. The movie's out. I haven't heard great things in it, which is surprising because Anne Hathaway's the lead. The book is great. I think Eileen is the better of Otessa's two novels out of My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Eileen. However, I do really think she shines in her short stories Homesick for a New World. I think her features are really delicate. I think she emotes super well, and when she is Eloise and she's opposite Anya Taylor-Joy as Sandy, you can really see her kind of devour this like complicated female dynamic of like caring so much about somebody that you feel like you know, and then being betrayed by them in the end and realizing you didn't really know them, but are they really wrong for what they did? And Eloise goes through that journey when she finds out about Sandy's life, and I feel like it really mimics Ren's journey with what happens with Richard, especially towards the end where she's just kind of heartbroken and resigned to the fact that like she will never love this school or these people or acting as much as she did then, because everything reminds her of that situation and the choice that she made. Next up, we have Alexander. Of Alexander, Oliver says, Alexander was our resident villain. Thin and wiry with long hair and curls and sharp canine teeth that made him look like a vampire when he smiled. Alexander is one of my favorites. He is a classic jester, troubled character duology that Shakespearean novels love to do. If Shakespeare ever wants you to laugh and mock somebody, I guarantee you they are important and or will have a tragic backstory that will make you feel ashamed for thinking that you can laugh. Because what's funny? What's funny? Alexander goes through a lot. Throughout the book, he struggles with being gay and his sexuality. He also struggles with substance abuse issues and he ODs. He really goes through it, like truly God's strongest soldier. And I think that he's a very underrated character that in the film or TV adaptation would be somebody that like people would really be interested in dissecting and learning more about. And I can just see the TikToks and the think pieces and the videos that he would inspire, because he's super complex and kind of flies under the radar almost intentionally because Oliver really has no romantic connection to him. He's kind of the only guy that is not impacted by Oliver's romantic connections, right? Because Richard, although Oliver doesn't like him and he's not like falling for him, Richard knows about him and James and he can pick something up, and whether that's because Richard is homophobic or because maybe Richard is also like this and James didn't like him back, he impacts the relationship. Alexander is stunned and he has dark curly hair and he's tall and he looks like a Victorian child who hasn't slept in like 5 days because they're coughing up blood from TB. Sorry, that was a lot. So of course my choice is no other than the talented, the amazing, get behind me, I'll defend you, because these women was creeping on you when you was a baby, Finn Wolfhard. There's no Finn. He was obviously famous because he was in Stranger Things. He also did It, which I think was an amazing role for a child actor to really show how talented they are. It was like a mother off. The entire movie was just like a mother convention. But he is also in Goldfinch, Donna Tartt's it's not dark academia, but it deals with like the world of art and elitism and art thieves and all of this good jazz. So I feel like this would be right in his wheelhouse. I feel like this could be like a big transformative role for him, especially post Stranger Things, post It, where he's playing a teenage boy and everybody knows that. I think stepping up into a role where you're playing a third-year college student would really help the audience like age you up, because he's old. Like, I think they're gonna have to do like the aging process on the kids in Stranger Things final season comes out, because I don't understand. Like, the man's 21 already. He's also in the new Ghostbusters, so maybe that'll be good. I don't know. I just see it. Like, I just see it. I feel like he would be the perfect Alexander. However, next is my favorite character, literally my girl. I love her. I'm talking about Philippa, obviously. Of Philippa, Oliver says this: Philippa and I were more difficult to categorize. She was tall, olive-skinned, vaguely boyish. There was something cool and chameleonic about her that made her equally convincing as Horatio or Amelia. I think it's interesting the way that out of all people, Oliver relates Philippa to himself in a way of cool and just kind of existing. The only girl that he doesn't really attach qualities to, outside of the fact that she can be whoever the people around her want her to be. And I think it's super interesting how in-depth Oliver understands people, testament to how talented of actors they are. I do think it's a shame that Philippa is so underdeveloped, because again, she is a girl that has no romantic ties to their relationship. She's not in a love triangle a la Ren and James. She's not really anything outside of a friend, yet she's almost integral to keeping them out of jail, honestly. And if it wasn't for Oliver's romantic relationships, especially considering we know it's one of his partners that ultimately ends up getting them caught, Philippa and Oliver could have theoretically kept this entire thing under wraps, but he wasn't able to play the part, and she is always able to play hers. So obviously Pippa's my girl. She's olive skinned, so in my mind she has to be a woman of color. I don't care what anybody says. Beautiful, the talented, the amazing Kiersey Clemons. I just feel like nobody but a black woman could play Pippa. The way Pippa completely keeps them all together. She takes care of the weapon. She cleans James up. She hides the blood. She keeps the secret. She picks Oliver up from jail. When he comes out, she's the one to tell him about James. She is really God's strongest soldier. And also she struggles with not having a family and her father being incarcerated. And I really feel like she would be an amazing addition to this cast. And I think that she would portray Philippa in a really genuine and honest way. If you guys don't know who Kiersey Clemons is, she plays Iris in The Flash. She was also in the 2015 movie Dope. I personally think the performance that makes me think that she would body Pippa is her performance in Flatliners, where she plays a college kid and they kind of cheat with death to kind of learn about science and life and the afterlife, etc., etc. I feel like Pippa is a really stoic, realistic problem solver, and seeing her in that role made me realize, like, yeah, she would be good. I really want her as Pippa. I need it now. Then next we have the MC, Mr. Oliver Marks himself, and of himself he says, I, on the other hand, was average in every imaginable way. Not especially handsome, not especially talented, not especially good at anything, but just good enough at everything that I could pick up whatever slack the others left. I was convinced I had survived the third-year purge because James would have been moody and sullen without me. Which is super interesting, because if you notice, Oliver gives almost no physical description of what he actually looks like, and I think it's because he doesn't want the reader to judge his actions based on whether or not they think he is physically attractive. I also think it's in his nature to, whether it's fake humility or not, kind of decenter himself and focus on the people around him so that he really doesn't ever have to open up and show you who he truly is. And Oliver is somebody who treats people based on the way they look. See the differences in the way he describes all the women in his life, and in the second how he describes James. So for Oliver, I think he has to be a casual, quintessential handsome boy, but something mildly off-putting, or something that makes you stare and tilt your head a little bit longer than you would if you just saw like a Zac Efron running down the street. I mean, if I saw Zac Efron running down the street, I'd probably start barking. You know what I mean? For our Oliver, for our MC, he's not really our golden boy, is he? Because that's James. Our prison pen pal, if you will. None other than Charlie Plummer. Listen to me. Imagine him with his hair pulled back in a bun with like some little strands behind his ears. This is Oliver. You just have to walk with me, okay? He's 24, so he looks great. This specific picture that I'm showing you is Oliver. Like, this is Oliver. I am so sorry. If you don't know Charlie Plummer, he played Pudge, the main character in Looking for Alaska, which is one of my favorite all-time books. I've read Looking for Alaska probably about 5 probably 5 to 7 times since I read it for the first time. I think he's amazing. He was in The Clove Hitch Killer, he was in Wildflower, and I really think he needs a transformative breakout role, and I could see him as Oliver. He kind of has this like timid waifiness to him. I could also see him using that as also kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing type of thing, where he has ulterior motives and he keeps a lot of this stuff close to his chest. I feel like he has such an expressive face and he'd be really good in the scenes where he's upset or he's angry. The blonde hair, the blue eyes, the traditional attractive, but it's not Shakespearean attractive because that wasn't the Roman beauty standard at the time, would be great. Because while he on paper should be everything that we want, he doesn't fit in kind of the arena that he's in. He's just a stereotypical white guy. Does that make sense? Are you seeing what I'm saying? Anyways, let's move it on, shall we? So let's get on to James, because it's actually quite interesting in the way that we are first introduced to James, because you'll see, much like the way of himself, Oliver takes careful consideration to not describe the way he looks and the way he described Meredith or Wren, for instance. Of James, Oliver says, "He was the sort of actor everyone fell in love with as soon as he stepped on stage, and I was no exception. Even in our early days at Delacour, I was protective and even possessive of him. When other friends came too close and threatened to usurp my place as best, an event as rare as a meteor shower, some people saw me as Gwendaline always cast me, simply the loyal sidekick. James was so quintessentially a hero that this didn't bother me. He was the most handsomest of us. Meredith once compared him to a Disney prince. But more charming than that was his childlike depth of feeling on stage and off. Somebody play Mitski, Me and My Husband. Like, what? Because when he walks in, I am loved. I think James is the most integral and important casting of all. I think you really have to make James somebody charming and charismatic to the point that the watcher not only falls in love with him, but they are then okay with everything that he does and causes. I think the Disney prince aspect of it kind of throws me off. I think by American beauty standards, if somebody was handsome in the way a Disney prince was and they did the things that James does to Richard, they would just be like, fight him back. Body difference between the two that's highlighted more on throughout the book when they get physical is kind of left out in this description, right? Because he's taking painstaking care to not describe the way he looks, even going so far to say, well, Meredith said he looked like a Disney prince. He's too scared to describe him in his physicality lest he give anything away. So I'm gonna shake the table a little bit. I don't want a traditionally like Disney prince Timothy Chalamet person for James. I want somebody that you want to root for, somebody that's handsome, somebody that gets under your skin, who's kind of like a nagging, obsessing, like, I need this, I want this. And to be completely honest, this choice is 100% inspired by this actor's performance I saw in another Dark Academia movie that is quite similar to The Secret History, to If We Were Villains. None other than Dane DeHaan, who I want as our James. It was actually just in Oppenheimer for like 3 minutes. Like, oh my gosh, I remember him. And then I remembered one of the best movies. Kill Your Darlings is an amazing Dark Academia movie. It follows Daniel Radcliffe as Allen Ginsberg, where he moves to attend Columbia in the 1940s. There he meets Lucian Carr, Jack Kerouac, and William S. Burroughs, David Camero. It is based on a true story of their time at Columbia in the 1940s, and it ultimately leads to Camero's murder and the subsequent trial that followed it. It's a really emotional story. There's lots of books written about it. There's lots of poetry written by these people about it, and you can find tons of lore on the internet. I feel like Dane was really transformative in his role as Lucian Carr. He's really great at capturing the nuance of a semi-homoerotic, like tense friendship between two creative and expressive men, and what it feels like to kind of not view gender as a binary because you are interested in exploring the world and because you are an open and free thinker. How that influences you in real world situations when maybe not thinking about gender when it comes to things like relationships or friendships can be problematic and have real world consequences, especially in a time like the 40s or the 90s, which is when If We Were Villains is set in. But where I think he really shines is in A Cure for Wellness. It's one of my favorite movies. A lower level player at this like major company, and he is tasked with going to retrieve their CEO from an elusive like wellness spa he's been at for like months, and he's been MIA. A place where once you go in, you never go out. This is also the movie where Mia Goth got her start. highly recommend checking out these two films. Dane DeHaan is really underrated, and I do think he has this magnetism where he is able to carry a cast and really sell the idea that like the world kind of orbits around him. Okay, so now that we have our main 7 down, we're gonna get into the other major players who aren't the students but still play an integral role to the story, and the first of which we are introduced to one of my favorites, the iconic, the amazing Miss Gwendaline. She teaches them the accuracy of Shakespeare, the emotion, the feeling, and Frederick kind of teaches them like the history, the context, and kind of like how it plays into like their lives and what they can do to kind of bring that to the stage. Gwendaline's crazy. Like, she's actually cooked, and I feel like she's such a great representation of so many like theater teachers and directors, because they can be some of the kookiest people. Actually, how are you allowed to teach children? Gwendaline, Oliver says, the red-headed stick figure woman behind the casting table glanced up at me, her presence in the room disproportionately enormous. Bold pink lipstick and a paisley headscarf made her look like some sort of, he says the word gypsy, which is not a good word, but in the 90s most definitely would have been used. She wiggled her fingers in greeting, and the bangles on her wrist rattled. Gwendaline is a hard cast because she has to have this kind of Abby Lee Miller-esque quality to where you never know what you're going to get from her. Very Sour Patch Kid. And also she's described as really stick skinny. So at first I was like, okay, Tilda Swinton maybe. She'd be great as playing her. She was a redhead in Suspiria. She played a dance instructor. So I was like, she could do that. But I'm like, that's kind of just the same role. I feel like we should really push the boat out. Take it there. Our Gwen is none other than the amazing, the talented, the wonderful, the iconic Miss Jennifer Coolidge. I'm sorry, can you not see it? Literally, these guys, they're trying to kill me. Like, that is literally Richard in this book. As I saw the like headscarf tied around her head inside a dark theater, and she's dressed like she's on a vacation to the Florida Keys. Yeah, mother. I feel like she would be amazing at this, and I love that she's had this like renaissance and she's taken very seriously as an actress, and I think that she would give like Batista level transformation in this, because I definitely think that she could body this like very emotionally terse, unstable, and kind of cruel woman. You know? So we have Frederick, who, like I said, is her counterpart. Oliver really takes painstaking time to kind of highlight how kind and father-like Frederick is. He calls him a bookish little Santa Claus. He says he likes to pace around a lot. He rarely ever sits down. Makes some tea, which is very Julian Morrow coded. And he says that he likes to sip it delicately and use nice, like, fine china teacups. He also says of Frederick, Frederick was watching me, I realized, with the proud fatherly affection he usually reserved for James, who gave me a faint but encouraging smile when I glanced across the table. I love Frederick. There's a moment in which Oliver is falling apart and he goes to Frederick, and Frederick makes him tea, and Oliver drops the cup and shatters it, and he's really going through it. And Frederick just looks at him and he's like, talk to me, like, tell me what's wrong, like, I will be there for you. I really think that he, again with Alexander, will be one of those characters that really transformative and that you really root for and like. And for that reason, he gotta be black. I'm sorry. Our Frederick is none other than Colman Domingo. Colman Domingo is an amazing actor. Kind of has this solid, comforting, and reassuring quality to him. You may know him as Ali from Euphoria, where he plays Rue's sponsor. I think Ali's energy would be great to bring to Frederick, but this man's filmography is very long. He's Color Purple, Selma, Fear the Walking Dead. There is not a movie this man hasn't done. The last teacher that we are going to cast is Cameo. He is their combat teacher. He teaches them the physicality, the movement of Shakespeare. And of Cameo, Oliver says, Cameo, a young Chilean guy whose dark beard and gold earring made him look a bit like a pirate, was our fight choreographer, personal trainer, and movement coach. Not much to go by, but then I racked my brain. What actor do I know that is Afro-Latino, he's Brazilian, and black, could bring not only their outside knowledge of Shakespeare to this, but could embody this character? And then I thought, I got it. I fucking got it. None other than Alfred Enoch. You might know him as Dean from Harry Potter or the extremely popular show How to Get Away with Murder, but outside of that, he is an amazing thespian who has done tons of Shakespeare, including Romeo and Juliet. Just a great actual actor. Like, he not only does he body film and TV, but he has amazing stage presence and he commands a theater. I think his outside knowledge would help him, and I think it would just be an amazing amazing, amazing move for him. The last and final character that we have to discuss, one of the most important, and we're gonna jump a little bit back to the beginning, is Detective Colborne. This is the first character we actually meet by name and the first description we get before we even know who our main character's name is. Of Detective Colborne, Oliver says this: "Enter Joseph Colborne. He is a graying man now, almost 50. It's a surprise every few weeks to see how much he's aged, and he's aged a little more every few weeks for 10 years. He sits across from me and folds his hands and says Oliver." Detective Colborne is an important and integral casting. A large amount of whatever adaptation we get is going to feature this man and Oliver alone. So I feel like it has to be somebody that's recognizable, somebody that is talented and can draw an audience, but somebody that is very transformative. And after I saw The Last of Us, baby, I already knew who I wanted it to be. It's none other, you guessed it, Nick Offerman. Seeing him in The Last of Us, I was like, get this man on a cop show. Like, get him on a cop who has to question his morals because he wants to find this man come hell or high water. And I also feel like his facial acting is great, which is super important because Colborne is silent for a majority of the scenes, especially when Oliver's kind of just confessing to him. So you're gonna have to be an amazing facial actor, and Colborne is described as having these thick dark eyebrows that form like a thick black line. I want to see him in this like dark academia like setting. Somebody messaged me and said he would be a great Julian Morrow after they watched my Secret History casting video, and I was like, hold on, hold on, hold on. For Dean Hollinshed, I didn't cast anybody, but I do love Clancy Brown from Detroit Become Human, so if he could just be like a little homage, because I wanted him as Detective Colborne, but I just think he's a little bit too old, because that's just one of my favorite video games and one of my favorite detectives, okay? That was it. That was my fan casting of If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I hope we get a film adaptation or some type of adaptation. This book is super popular and this genre is really great to do, and it's not as expensive as a fantasy genre or any of the popular books. Like, good luck to whoever buys the rights to Fourth Wing. Good luck. But I definitely think that we need more of this genre on the screen, and we need amazing talented actors to bring the theater back to cinema. But yes, let me know down below if you guys envisioned a different person. Do you guys disagree? Do you agree? Did I cook? Did I eat? Did I do my big one? And make sure to follow me on my socials. And thank you so much for all the love on my Hunger Games video essay. I cannot believe the reaction to that. You guys are absolutely amazing. It means the world to me. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.